May it please the court. Dean Mallard, Mr. Wrench, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good morning. There's no question that a terrible tragedy took place on October 6th, 2018. Dozens of lives were irreparably harmed on that day, and the families who are impacted will continue to suffer long after this trial is over. And when something so horrific happens, our natural instinct is to look for someone to blame, just to feel that if someone is held to account, that justice will be done, or that there will be closure for the families that lost loved ones. But finding a scapegoat, condemning the least powerful person involved in declaring victory is not justice. Ignoring those who are most blameworthy, those people and those agencies, that's not justice. Pretending that a single individual caused the death of so many is not justice. The proof will show that in 2018, my client, a young man in his 20s, was working for his father, Schoharie Hussain, who owned a roadside motel and a limo company. My client Nauman Hussain, had no education, training, or experience in running a business, or inspecting or making repairs on either the motel or his dad's vehicles. He did what his father asked him to do. Cleaned the cars, paid the hired drivers, and filled in at the motel when necessary. In the spring of 2018, a few months before the crash, Schoharie Hussain, the owner of the limo company, the owner and operator of that limo business, left the United States and returned to his native country of Pakistan. He left Nauman to do the best he could in taking care of those businesses. And the proof will show that with no training and limited exposure to the ins and outs of either the businesses, Nauman did the best he could. Importantly, he was like those of us who rely upon those professionals to make sure that things were done properly. And you're going to learn about the two most important professionals upon whom Nauman relied. The first is Chad Smith, the inspector from the Department of Transportation. Now, we pay taxes to ensure that government workers like Chad actually do their jobs, and you're going to find out that our taxes were wasted on Chad's salary. Chad's job was to inspect vehicles, like the limo involved in this case, and determine whether there are any problems that need to be corrected. Chad also had the power to take a vehicle off the road and to authorize to go back into service. You will also learn that the people and the entity most and directly responsible for the deaths of those 20 in October 2018 is Mavis Discount Tire in Saratoga Springs. Now, Mavis isn't some rinky-dink mom-and-pop garage on the side of some old road. It's a national chain, hundreds of locations who advertise and brag about their expertise. You will hear evidence that my clients relied upon those at Mavis to repair the brakes in the limo and to inspect the limo to ensure it was safe to be on the road. You will see the video of what the guys at Mavis told him when they looked him in the eye and shook his hand and said, "We'll fix it. We'll take care of it." You will learn that Mavis failed to perform the brake work needed, lied to my client that they had done the work, charged him for the repairs they had not done, and sent him on his way. You will learn that on September 17th, 2019, the People interviewed Virgil Parks. Virgil Parks is the name you're going to hear a lot in this case because he was the manager at Mavis. Mr. Parks discussed the work that was performed on the 2001 excursion limousine, and a May 2018 invoice. In preparation for this work, you will learn that Mr. Parks told Nauman that he had purchased a wherever brake master cylinder from Advanced Auto Parts. And although the Mavis invoice that charged Nauman for the parts and the work actually listed this master brake cylinder, the people had been informed by Mr. Parks that actually one of the employees, a gentleman named Mr. Okoro, I believe is on the witness list, told him that that part was not installed. Instead, this part was returned to Advanced Auto Parts on May 12, 2018. I submit to you, as you listen to the proof, this is not a situation in which Mr. Hussain said, put in these brake things, but don't put in these brake things. You will find that when he went to Mavis, he said, please fix my brakes. And they said, don't worry. Worse to the effect of, don't worry, we'll take care of it. You bring it to us because you know that we're the only ones who can work on this kind of vehicle. Please pay very close attention to the timeline of important events in this case. Although Nauman took the limo in to have the brakes fixed in May 2018, he had no way of knowing that Mavis lied to him and charged him for the work that had not been done. They gave him a bill. He paid the bill. He said, thank you very much, and they sent him on his way. You will find that, in fact, when Nauman would return to Mavis and say, hey, the brakes feel a little weird, that Virgil Parks would take him out on a trip around the block in the limo, saying, look, the brakes are fine. There was no way for Nauman to know what they had not done. The evidence will show that my client was arrested 2 days after the accident, but before any analysis was done on the limousine. You will learn that the fraud committed by Mavis was not discovered until months later, when the limo had been taken apart and the brakes inspected. Bit by bit, part by part, was when it was discovered what had happened. And much like a case where a building burns down, and the first thought is, well, it must have been the sprinkler system that didn't work, and then only after an investigation uncovers the truth that it was something else entirely, like a faulty electrical installation or a bad gas stove. Such is the same situation here. The accident occurred, and everybody assumed that it must have been Nauman's fault, while the later investigation turned up something entirely different. The proof will show that Nauman took the limo to Mavis in 2018 to have the brakes fixed. They told him they could fix his brakes, and I can't emphasize this enough. They told him that they were going to fix the brakes, because again, this timeline. Chad Smith had talked to him, and you'll find all this out. Chad Smith had talked to Nauman and said, hey, there's something wrong with your brakes. Nauman said, okay. He brought it to Mavis. They told him, after Nauman paid the Mavis bill, that he had fixed the brakes. In reality, they hadn't done anything. They just charged him for it. Sold the parts back for cash and let the limo leave the lot. Sent him on his way. Now, the proof will show that to compound the problem, the guys at Mavis also told him that they could inspect the limousine. Openings are not proof. Stuff you're going to hear after we stop talking in a second is proof, but the people will tell you to ignore the minutia of the regulations. Don't worry about that, it gets confusing. I submit to you that that's going to be a major theme of our presentation here. With all the regulations that they expect a young man to do as he jumps from one foot to the next, they tell you then, well, don't pay attention, it's not important to you. That is one of the most important things that you need to look at in this case. Because they are depending on a 20-something-year-old man to know things that nobody else could know. The proof will show that Nauman relied upon these professionals, these people who were telling him, do this, fix that, go here, take care of this. And he said, okay. And he paid the bills and he tried to keep up and he jumped from one foot to the next. And when he asked Mavis, can you inspect this vehicle? And they said, sure, absolutely, we'll take care of it. That's a DMV inspection. It's not a DOT inspection, but there are a bunch of different kinds of DOT inspections because sometimes there are roadside inspections, and sometimes there's this, and sometimes there's that. I submit to you, by the end of this trial, we're all going to figure out and know all the different inspections. But when you have a bunch of different words coming at you and a bunch of different people that you're supposed to trust telling you a bunch of different things, I submit to you that it got pretty confusing for Nauman, especially as he could not get any real direction. So if the people want to talk about a failure to do something, I say, great, let's have that talk. Let's have that talk about everybody who failed to do something. If you want to talk about acts of omission, let's have that talk. But let's have that talk when it comes to Mavis and the Department of Transportation and the state of New York. Because the proof will show that the actions, the Mavis employees at least, well, they were criminally negligent. Their failures were the actual cause of the crash. And you do not need to take my word for it. Now, during voir dire, we heard that the state has paid an expert a lot of money to come in here and testify about what caused the crash. The expert will tell you that the cause of the accident, the reason that 20 people's lives were taken, is a result of catastrophic brake failure. Catastrophic brake failure. Those brakes that Mavis did not fix. You will hear the prosecutor say that my client is responsible because he used Mavis and they were not authorized to work on the limo. But listen very carefully to that evidence. Because the proof will show that when Chad Smith, representative from the state of New York, the Department of Transportation guy, first encountered this limousine, he encountered it at Mavis Discount Tire in Saratoga Springs. Chad Smith, that expert government worker, Nauman's point of contact with the great regulatory state, first saw this limousine at Mavis. Now, you will hear proof that Chad didn't run in and say, whoa, 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 you guys can't work on this thing. He didn't immediately call the owner of the limousine and say, whoa, 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 you can't have Mavis work on this thing. But instead, you will hear that Chad Smith got out of his car, walked onto the lot, did some searching around, went in to talk to the guys at Mavis about the work they were doing in the limousine, to get some ownership information, and said, great, and left. So how was Nauman Hussain to know. He didn't know. He couldn't have known. They want to talk about all these regulations, and I say, great, let's have that talk. But let's put all of our cards on the table here. And they want you to pay attention to the timeline. So the prosecutor told you that he's responsible because this vehicle was placed out of service 32 days before the accident. And then an out-of-service sticker was placed on the driver's side windshield of that limousine. But you will find out why that out-of-service sticker was placed on the limousine. 3 things. 1, you will find out that the child safety lock on the back door, little thing to keep kids from opening the door and falling out, that lock was broken. Number 1. Number 2, the emergency exit on one of the back windows was malfunctioning. Number 3, there's some decal that exists that needs to show that the vehicle itself had been modified. And that decal was missing. Those are the 3 reasons it was taken out of service 32 days before the accident. And Nauman was told, hey, fix those 3 things and you're good to go. It was not taken out of service for the brakes. It was not taken out of service for anything that caused the accident. The undisputed cause of the accident was catastrophic brake failure. The brakes that Mavis never fixed failed when the limo was going down a steep hill. That sticker did not cause the accident. The child safety lock did not cause the accident. The driver, Mr. Lesnikian, did not cause the accident. In fact, you're going to hear that this guy without a P endorsement on his license did everything in the world he could to try and prevent the accident. And proof will show that if everything else had been the same, everything else had been the same, if the brakes were fixed, as Mavis told Nauman Hussain that work had been done the way Mavis told them it had been done, those 20 people would still be alive. The accident was caused by the fraud and failure of Mavis to fix the brakes, and then the incompetence of the state of New York to uncover their misconduct. Now, when we have our appliances or our homes or our vehicles fixed by a professional, we have a right to rely on their assurances that it had been fixed. When we pay government workers, we have a right to expect that they will do their jobs. But the proof here in this case will show something else. The entire prosecution is designed to get you, the jury, to look away from who really is at fault. Every single day we talk about Nauman Hussain. It's a day that the real perpetrators escape blame. We know that powerful people can protect their own. The state of New York and a corporation are probably laughing because they know they should be sitting here instead of Nauman Hussain. Each one of them grabbed a chair when the music stopped, leaving him standing alone to be blamed for something that they did. The proof will show that they've weaponized the criminal justice system. They arrested Nauman before they knew why the accident took place. Months, even years, went by before they had figured out what caused the accident. But when there is a tragedy of this magnitude, the motivation was clear. Arrest first, think of a reason second, and do a real investigation last. And yet here we are, with a chance to finally do the right thing, to be the just person, to be the light in all this darkness, to light the way towards who really is at fault. At the end of this case, I will ask you not to make my client a scapegoat. I will ask you not to condemn him for the sins of others. I will ask you to do justice and demand that the prosecutor hold the real criminals responsible. And I'll ask you to find my client not guilty.